Greetings folks, I'm Guy Allen, editor of Unique Cars magazine. Going to have a bit of a chat today about the big upcoming Shannons classic car auction. Heap of metal in there, near enough to 100 odd lots, so there's paraphernalia, there are number plates and of course cars, and a really interesting selection. A lot of top Benzes, some top BMWs, Porsche of course, GT500 Cortina, you don't see a lot of them come up on the market. What else have we got? Well, we've got some Aussie coupes, and something that particularly caught my eye was the CL770 Charger. Now this is the last of the series, and by coincidence we've featured that in an upcoming issue of the magazine out the day after the auction starts. They've got a huge amount of appeal for me. They're the last of the Chargers. Now this one's estimated at 40 to 50,000. If you got it within cooey of that, I reckon you'd be doing all right. That's a lot of local glamour muscle for the money. Well, it stacks up well. This one's got the big 6 in the front of it and of course a 4-speed manual, so it's actually a package that's pretty desirable, and if it lobbed in your driveway I reckon you'd be pretty happy. Anyway, come with us. Melbourne's in lockdown, so we've had to do this all by screen instead of in the actual auction rooms this time around. Alex has picked one or two favourites, so has Angelo. Let's go and have a look at them. So there we were. We're talking about, off camera, the classic market actually seems to be holding up despite all the lockdowns and uncertainty at the moment, which I'm a little bit surprised, but you've got a few thoughts on this.
Yeah, I think many people sort of expected a big downward dip once all this hit, but I think that the top end market has come back significantly. I think the people at that end, the higher end market, are a lot less willing to throw money around. Things are a bit more volatile at that point, but the entry and the mid-level stuff seems to be as active as ever. Through all the auctions, the sell-through rates, reserves are perhaps advertised a little more conservatively these days, I think. Yeah. But frequently the stuff that's, 20, 30, 40 grand is really overachieving in many cases. Right.
And you speculate, look, there's a lot of younger people getting out there and more interested in sort of a weekend car.
I think that's happening demographically. I think especially in the certain types of cars that seem to be gaining momentum of late. You see a lot of the young timer, like Japanese stuff and European stuff getting quite hot at the moment. So I think that's a sign of perhaps a younger demographic maybe coming into money and moving into these sorts of toys.
We've both been looking at the auction catalogue. We're in the worst possible job on the planet if you want to keep your wallet intact. But what was your first choice? You came up with an interesting one.
I think a lot of the value is in the Europeans, as you said.
Yeah.
And the first car that stuck out to me was an E34 M5. BMW 1990. It was the sporty saloon, but from an era where they didn't really shout at you from a design point. It's a very understated car, but last of the hand-built M cars. It has that beautiful 6-cylinder engine. And against the perhaps more popular E30 M3 and the E24 6 Series that are also in this auction, I think that one holds the best value and the best prospect for giving you some money back when the time comes to move it up.
Well, I think you're spot on. I mean, they were a true performance car, the last of their hot sixes, and hand built, as you say. This is revealing my age, but I went to the launch of these things, where the same launch they did the 850 launch for Australia as well.
Yeah,
and their star drivers were Formula One champion Alan Jones and, of course, touring car star Tony Longhurst. They were both there at the launch doing joy rides or scare rides, take your pick. Yeah. And they also later, with the third driver, took an M5 to Bathurst for the 12-hour and won their class. What's the range they're suggesting for this car?
44,000 to 52,000.
Yeah, see, that's, if you put it like this, a manual, high-end, hand-built, limited production.
BMW M car, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
To call it 50 grand.
M5, lovely choice. I admire your thinking.
No, thank you.
A little more expensive is the Honda NSX. Now, this is a funny car because I know looking at them 10 years ago, they were half their current prices.
Especially in the last couple of years, I think that tide has definitely turned.
Yeah.
And this was a car for Honda, at least. It really put Ferrari and all the other supercar makers on notice. The 90s Japanese stuff is just going gangbusters right now.
Yeah.
For whatever reason, all these heroic, sports cars that, like you said, for the longest time people weren't paying any mind to, are now, really just gaining steam.
Well, they're talking guiding range of 100 to 125, which, sure, that's a lot of money, but in exotic car terms, that's not a lot of money.
No.
Here's one of the lovely ironies too. One of the reasons they were looked down upon was because it was built by Honda. One of the reasons it would be a very easy car to live with is because it was built by Honda.
Because it's built by Honda, exactly. Yep.
Righto, mate, you've surprised me a bit this time. I thought you'd be straight into the American stuff, but you're going for the FB station wagon this time. Talk me through it.
I am indeed. I had a hunt and looked at all the US candidates on offer, but I went straight for the FB. I don't know. I'm just starting to develop a bit of a soft spot for this generation Holden, and I just looked at it and just said, wow, in the current circumstances, it looks like a car that you could just turn around and take home and get some enjoyment out of it immediately. It looks like the current owner has been quite particular about the restoration side of it,
right.
And every piece of work has been catalogued and has been put out on a spreadsheet somehow. But it just looks stunning, and it's such a nice colour combination. The two-tone, the pastel yellow.
It's a real Chevrolet look for that era too, isn't it? With the mini fins and the two-tone.
Yeah, well, I always turn around and said the FB and FC and so forth were like, the baby 57 Chevrolet, weren't they?
Yeah.
And I mean, you look at that back tail fin that it's got, and it's probably the best part of it. But I'm an American car buff. So many years, and like we've seen in the last couple of years, wagons have gotten a lot of momentum because, they were always the family car. They were neglected. They were never sought after to be, preserved and adored by collectors. But now all of a sudden they're such a rarity. That's why everyone seems to get excited by them. So, and it's great to see them at that level, condition-wise.
Well, exactly. Yeah. 35 to 40 is the estimate. Now that sounds like a lot of money for an old Holden, but and it's a big but. What's it going to cost you to restore one?
Oh, exactly. And that's how I always look at cars now. It's just like, hang on, by the time you paint it, by the time you source the upholstery, you do the chrome work, let alone how long it takes to actually physically do all this stuff, you're going to exceed that amount.
Now, the auction starts on August 19, so keep an eye out for it at Shannons online. And, of course, look for our website, tradeuniquecars.com.au. And we have the new issue coming out with the big charger on the front of it on August 20.